Now, our fourth speaker, Angelito Andi Kofis, has received a new mission from Nagasaki, Japan to Myanmar. So he's journeying today, but he has sent his video, and we are going to listen to what he has presented.
To everybody, I am very blessed that I am being invited here to speak about what is happening here as a testimony after listening to our great speakers. So I prepared some pictures just to journey with my testimony. First, I would like to situate that I am coming from the Philippines, which has 7,642 islands, which is very beautiful, surrounded with ecological nature and a lot of diversity. That's why, with that experience growing up, we were surprised when last November 8, 2013, Typhoon Haiyan visited the Philippines and around 10,000 people died. And what that was the awakening of the Filipinos about the challenge of climate change. And with that, my advocacy started as a young Franciscan. After that, I also worked for the victims of extrajudicial killings that killed 25,000 people uh, under the former president. So with that experience of ministry to the people with the grounds, uh, I was uh, I experienced death threats, and my provincial asked me to go some areas, and the fastest way to escape because of my former work is to go to the Holy Land, not knowing that I will be a missionary. And to situate, I am working in Jaffa, Tel Aviv, the only parish here in Tel Aviv, the center of Israel. And I am working in the Filipino migrants with the English-speaking migrants. And I was asking God why. I mean, I for my life, I'm working for justice and peace and ecology, and now I am here in the Holy Land. I don't know what kind of ministry I'm going to do. But remembering again, as a Franciscan, Saint Francis in his spirit, in 1212, Francis set out for Syria but was shipwrecked. The next year, he headed for Morocco, but because of grave illness, got only as far as Spain. In 1219, Francis finally traveled to Egypt and was able to meet people of Islam. On his arrival to Egypt, Francis received permission to go to the front lines and enter Damietta to speak with Melik Al-Kamil, the Sultan of Egypt. Jacques de Vitry, who was the Bishop of Acre, the modern-day Israel, at the time, writes that Saracens captured St. Francis, who told them that he was a Christian and asked to be taken to the Sultan. When the Sultan recognized in Francis a man of God, he treated him gently and gave Francis hospitality for several days, listening carefully to all Francis had to say. Dimitri says that the Sultan sent Francis back to the Christian camp because he was afraid that Francis preaching would convert soldiers. Two other early accounts say that the Sultan was advised by spiritual counselors that Francis should be killed. This the Sultan refused to do and asked Francis to leave for his own safety, but first said to him, "Pray for me, that God may deign to reveal to me the law and the faith which is more pleasing to him." The Sultan reportedly gave Francis a safe conduct to visit areas in the Holy Land at that time. So I think I am jumping from that experience of Francis to meet the Sultan, and the rest is history. Now we're the custodian of the Holy Land, and as we know, our speakers before mentioned about reconciliation and dialogue, and that's one of our major ministry here. But we must remember that as Christian, particularly Catholics, understanding reconciliation, Christ is placed centrally in the reconciliation process. Christ embodies the promise of God's reconciliation, which Christ tried to follow, understanding how reconciliation occurs varies across Christian groups. It is important to highlight the role of victim in initiating reconciliation and offering forgiveness based on a restored relationship with God. And in the Catholic perspective, whereas it emphasized the process need to start with the offender asking for forgiveness. Another way to understand reconciliation within Christianity is to focus on relationships. So with that, we need to highlight the importance of relationship, and we know that it deals with spiritual dimension that create harmony and restoring broken relationship with God. Relationship, individuals need to restore relationship to others, personal relationship, social relationship. And what we're talking about is the ecological relationship, the dimension that we can call reconciling with nature from a Christian perspective. That dimension recognizing humans cannot be fully reconciled with God while disrespecting and abusing God's creation. Reconciliation at this level calls for respect and for nature and ecological system in which we live. And with that crisis that is rooted in human heart, we know that Laudato Si speaks about condemning this kind of broken relationship that is being ruined, as our past speakers mentioned. With that, I want to highlight that Pope Francis once mentioned that migrants and refugees are not pawns on the chessboards of humanity. There are children, women, and men who live or who are forced to leave their homes for various reasons, who share a legitimate desire for knowing and having, but above all, for being more. Now I am working with migrants, particularly with Filipino migrants. There are many Filipino migrants here in Israel with papers and without papers. And with my journey with them, I see the most impossible situation. People living in small rooms, 20 people, 30 people with their children, leaving Philippines because they want to find better life. Other nationalities, Indians, Africans, many together here because they believe that this country can give them future. But you know that this country cannot really secure them because Israel cannot give residency. And a lot of them, they entered here as a tourist or as a pilgrim and they don't come back. And now they're working, cleaning houses, cleaning toilets, taking care of the sick, name it, all kinds of job. They're trying to find ways just to provide food on the tables of their homes back in the Philippines. And these beautiful people that I journeyed with, listening to their stories, imbibing their joy, it was really impossible to understand why they stay because to be an immigrant here, it's really difficult, not like other countries that you can really find security. But last October 7, I woke up hearing bombs here. And we all know what had happened. I was really saddened. I'm all alone here in the parish. My parish priest was in vacation. When I woke up, I was hearing sirens. And I'm about to say mass, and I said, "Where are the people?" And then people are texting me, asking me, "How are you, Father?" And then I realized that it began a war that will stop work, especially for these people that rely on the work that they have. I'm not talking about political situation of Israel and Palestine. I'm talking about my personal experience as a missionary to the migrants. And during the time, the only thing I saw, people are really afraid. We are shouting for help and for our lives because I don't know. I already prayed and I said, I called my family, my provincial. I told them maybe I will not see you again because that day bombings are really terrible. And with that, even migrant workers are affected. Within my people in our community, we lost four. Angeline, who shielded his life while somebody was shooting gun. Lori was burned. Grace also shielded his employer. Paul Vincent, who is a driver in the farm, was also killed. These are migrants that they didn't expected that they will be casualties of war, included with the many innocent women and children in Palestine and in Israel. And these migrant workers are creatures that, if we're going to use the gaze of God, they have lives like the plants that we're protected, the mountains that we want to conserve, our ecological uh, uh, conservation that we do, they're part of it. These people have lives, these people have children, these people have families, but like the many innocent lives, they went here for greener pastures, but they were sacrificed. And the worst is, like I mentioned, the situation of Israel. If if somebody wants security, they need to sacrifice their children. So here's a picture of Cedric, a 23-year-old son of Imelda Garin, a Filipino migrant who entered the military so they can stay legally. But out of the dream of their family, he was called to serve during the war. Last month, he was one of the soldiers, the 21 soldiers, who also sacrificed his life because of that dream that his mother has. And now he cannot they cannot pursue the dream. He is baptized as a Catholic here. He is confirmed and about to get married. They wanted to pursue their dream as children of migrant workers here. But Cedric symbolizes a lot of migrant workers who are trying to find ways to survive, enter the military, so their family can stay. But he was sacrificed. This beautiful picture was changed to this event. During the wake of Cedric, it was a reunion of all Filipino migrants, legal, illegal, because they want to thank the mother for her bravery, also to condole her, and everybody feels that we are part of Melda and Cedric, symbolizing a migrant worker who followed their dream and sacrifice a life, who is a creature that is part of our system. And I think this experience of mine as a priest is really life changing. I mean, to say mass, to pray the devotions, but to be with them, to journey with them, to listen to their stories, especially in these difficult times. I can really relate with the challenge of peoples in the peripheries, not only here in Israel and Palestine or in the Philippines or in Africa or anywhere. These are the realities that we need to look when we talk about interconnectedness, connectedness, and interrelatedness. These are the realities that speaks that we are talking about gospel of creation, and we speak about the gospel, we want to put our faith into action. And a big part of that action is to deal with people who have lives, people who sacrifice their lives. And you know what? Now that I'm still here as a missionary, people are telling me, Father, you go back. I said, no, I want to stay. So the only thing that inspires me are these children. These children of migrants that will be the future, that here they have no security, they can be deported. But every time they will ask me, Father, what is our future? I said, I don't know. Let us pray. Let us ask for the grace that God will help us, your mothers, your fathers. Finally, I think this is a big question to all of us as ecological advocates, as people of working for the environment, that I think when we look at interconnectedness in general, we also look at people as the primary, not objects, but that will the primary reminder that they're the one that we are serving and working with. Lastly, everything is related, and we human beings are united as brothers and sisters on a wonderful pilgrimage, woven together by the love God has for each of its creature, in which also unite us in fond affection with Brother Sun, Sister Moon, Brother River, and Mother Earth. As an advocate, as a priest, as a religious, this is a wake-up call for all of us. Laudato Si is always an instrument for us, not only to pray, not only to sympathize, but to really be with these people, especially in these times. Again, thank you very much for this opportunity. And you continue to pray for all of us here that we will be safe. We don't know when the war will be end, but we are still praying, hoping, and we're staying with our people so they will feel that the church is with them. Thank you, and may the Lord give you peace.